Welcome back to the land of Kakiak, where a Robinson curriculum-based homeschool family is working to bridge their young students to the RC method. So I've been talking about building your own bridge language arts sequence, and today I'm going to focus on sentence writing. So the Robinson curriculum officially recommends nothing but copy work as far as writing goes until about the age of 10. I do love copy work. I really see a lot of benefit to it. I think it's a lovely exercise, and it is definitely a big part of our language arts curriculum. I do though see some major benefit to some like targeted, specific, explicit instruction, especially when it comes to writing. So I am giving my children those stepping stones to get them to the RC goal of essay writing, right? So let's orient ourselves where we are in the sequence. So this is mine. I've recently updated it, and so I'll link it down below again for you in case. Like always, this is just my family's plan and what's been working for us, and it's always subject to change. You know, I might switch out resources, I might try something and think this isn't totally working, or it halfway worked. So I'm always kind of fidgeting with it, and you'll probably do that too with what works for you and your family if you're building your own sequence. But let's just kind of orient ourselves what we've gone through so far in the series. We have talked about, just basic reading, learning to read, phonics, your first reading program, using the McGuffey readers as an early structured reading program, copy work, I love it, some spelling, I talked about spelling a little bit, and then some comprehension checks and grammar checks, but in an oral capacity. We talked about that with my grammar and comprehension check-in bookmarks. I'll link that video down below too if you haven't seen it yet. Then I move on to writing through gentle grammar, using the gentle grammar to introduce some grammar and some writing. So let's say your child is 6, 7, 8, something like that. You're starting gentle grammar or some kind of grammar program, and you suddenly come to a lesson that like all of a sudden they're expected to write a sentence. Like they may give a subject like a book, and then it says write a sentence about a book, and your child cannot just produce a sentence on paper, right? I decided to look for, to pause our gentle grammar and just look for a targeted resource just on sentences, something gentle, something with explicit instruction, but not too complicated or overwhelming. So that's what I'm going to focus in on today. And so the first thing I actually picked up, because I really I've liked some of their other workbooks, was an Evan Moore Write a Super Sentence. And a sentence for grades 1 through 3. So I'm like, yeah, he's like in the beginning of 2nd grade. But when I looked at it, and I think it looks really great, I just thought it might be a little advanced for him. He is still 6. He doesn't turn 7 until September. So this might be more for a child that was just already a little bit more advanced. So I was like, I need something a little more pared down and has a little bit more instruction for me as the teacher, the facilitator. So I went to Teachers Pay Teachers because I think there's just a ton of good resources over there. And I found this, How to Write a Sentence. It's an 8-week unit, and it has activities for 4 days a week, so not too overwhelming. I could fit that into our 6-day-a-week schedule. And I like that this instructor provided a suggested outline with every day, like a little instruction for me to follow to kind of introduce the new skill or concept or activity. So I do really like that. Oh, it also came, we'll see all my bazillion little like tabbies I made in the back. But I just love not wasting time, and I can turn right to, right? So it makes it easy to review. This also makes it easy, like if we were gonna go to the park or something, I already have my teaching aids in the back here without having to like pack up, you know. I do keep a lot of, I don't know if you can see them. You know, I put them up little visual cues and things around the schoolroom. And that the kids use them actually a ton. I point them to them a ton. It's one of those things that you realize the value of having a designated school space, because you don't have to put that stuff away all the time. That's why I sacrificed my living room to become a schoolroom, because it just was so worth it to me. Because I use the schoolroom way more than I like watch TV or whatever. Anyway, so back to this resource. So I do really like it. I did think it sort of skipped over like the most basic beginning introduction to sentences. So, you know, I like to do things myself. So I did a little research. I put together my own little introduction to sentences. I put this for free in my TPT store, and I'll link it down below in case you want to grab it and take a look. And I actually filmed a little example lesson for you, and I will put it in here. This is how I would first introduce the concept of simple sentences to my students at home. So first, if you're following this little lesson plan I provided down below, you'll see that I first actually talk about words. And what are words? Words are sounds that we group together to communicate a thought, such as car, right? And they'll understand that. They understand words. Then I would move on to number 2 and say, what is a sentence? A sentence is a group of words that expresses a complete thought, right? So that car is driving fast, right? It's a complete thought. So I also let them know that a fragment would be missing something, so that it'd be an incomplete thought. Like, that car driving fast, if you said that to somebody, they know that they would need more information. They'd say, that car what? What about driving fast, right? So first I'd introduce those concepts and give them the building blocks of English before moving on to simple sentence structure. Okay, so they understand the progression from sounds to words to complete thoughts in a sentence. So now let's get a little more technical with them. How do we write a sentence, right? It's similar to the way we say a sentence. We start with how we would speak it, but how do we write it? So first I talk about the components of a simple sentence. So a sentence contains one subject and one verb, right? At least. That's a simple sentence. A subject, I would tell them, is who or what the sentence is about. The big black dog licked the coffee mug, right? So what's the subject? The big black dog. Or more simply, the dog, right? Then the predicate, which can come before or after the subject, depending on how they structure it. But a lot of times they're going to start with the subject and then the predicate, because it's just a little bit easier. But that might trip them up if you ask them which is the subject and which is the predicate. I notice sometimes they just think whatever came first, right, was the subject. On to the predicate, what the subject is or does. So is or does is important, the is. I feel like that's left out a lot in the early conversation about predicates, because later on they'll be learning about helping verbs and state of being verbs such as is, have, was, And it'll seem like a whole new concept because they've been taught an overly simplified definition of predicate. They just think, oh, the action part. They think doing, right? And not the being part. So I would emphasize the being part as well as the doing part of predicate. And next we'll move on to a simple exercise to get them formulating sentences on their own. So you've already gone over and made sure that they grasp words, sentences, what makes up a sentence, subjects and predicates, what are those, the who and the what, and the action or the state of being of the who or the what. Okay, so if you want to move on, we might want to remind them that the beginning of sentences are capitalized. And they always end with a punctuation, right? So you've got usually periods, but we can throw in some exclamation points or some question marks as they become a little more sophisticated in writing their own sentences. I would just start with statements, though. I would just start with periods. And then we're going to have a practice, a simple practice to get them learning how to fit the pieces together. So I would have them use their own little imaginations to come up with a list of subjects and a list of predicates, right? Or a list of who's and what's and a list of actions or state of beings. So here's my example list here. Subjects, come up with a car, Miss Susan. Don't forget to point out pronouns are capitalized. And he or him, okay? Subjects. Predicates or actions. Sneezes or sneezed. Is funny. I like that is example for the state of being. Ate shrimp, right? They even added in what they ate, not just ate. It was getting a little fancy. Okay, so then I just had people randomly, you could randomly have them link those up, right? Or they could think it through if they want to build their own, but it's kind of fun, you'll see why, to just kind of do it randomly. You'll come up with some silly sentences sometimes, and that's okay. So then we put them together. A car ate shrimp. Beautiful, beautiful, right? Miss Susan sneezed. And he or him, and it is funny. So we'll put those into sentences that make a little more sense. Miss Susan sneezed, period, makes sense. Make sure they're using proper capitalization. He is funny, makes sense. You can spice it up with an exclamation point. He is funny. And that's a good conversation point with the exclamation point and emotion. But a car ate shrimp. Okay, a little weird, right? And so we talk about that here in part 7 of the lesson plan. So say your sentence out loud, right? So have them actually write it out and then say it out loud. And they'd say, a car ate shrimp, and they might giggle, right? So you ask them to ask themselves, does it make sense? Does my sentence make sense when I say it out loud, right? If no, it's okay. We can just fix it. And this is a good way to introduce editing. A car ate shrimp doesn't make sense. How could I change it? Well, a really simple way would be just to change the subject, because there are things that do eat shrimp, right? How about a cat, right? You could say a car, and you could change the predicate to sped down the road or came to a stop, right? So it gives them a nice little practice on editing. So if they have combined a subject and predicate, written it out, read it out loud, fixed anything that didn't make sense, then have them go back and check for capitalization and punctuation and, spelling if they catch it. But that's not the main, point to the exercise. But then they're on their road to understanding how to put together sentences And I would have my student probably do this. It depends on their developmental age, but my 6-year-old will probably do this for like a week straight before we move on to any more complex grammar or sentence writing curriculum. Okay, so now you've seen how I introduce the concept of sentences to my students and how I get them, you know, familiar with the idea and how to practice writing sentences. I think that you could just like continue on in that vein on your own, and then probably hop back into Gentle Grammar and or whatever grammar program you're using. I think I am going to continue on. I have already done that and then continued on using this resource because I just liked it. It was really user friendly and it was pretty cheap. I want to say it was like $9. I don't know if you guys know this about Teachers Pay Teachers, but whatever you purchase, and I honestly, I think it's even for the freebies, there's a lot of freebies on Teachers Pay Teachers. If you leave a review for them, you get credit on your account. I forget how much it is, but you know, it's like 5 cents or 10 cents a review or whatever. So even like all the free resources that I get off of there, I always leave a review and then I use that credit to buy something. So I think I got this for like $6. So I had like $3 worth of credits, right? So always want that discount. Anyways, okay, so I'm going to continue on because I like it and it's user friendly, like I said. So I do think that having things like this, you may have seen them in the lesson, are helpful to have around. I find myself pointing to them, the kids looking for them when I ask questions, you know, and I'll link the link to these down below too because, I mean, it actually came with like a ton of them. And you can put them up, you can, you know, keep them loose and just refer to them. But I actually have referred to them a ton of times and they were nice and cheap and cute and, you know, I like things that aren't overly complex. We're moving down our lane, our writing sequence lane. We're giving our kids the tools to become writers themselves, you know, getting the thoughts from here, you know, down your arm, into your hand, through your pen or pencil onto the paper, and somebody else could just pick that up and read it, and now your thoughts are in their mind. It's almost like a spell. It's almost like magic. It's just amazing. And I tell my kids all the time, like, this is such a gift. Really, like, lean into that blessing that we have. And, like, how can we bless the world? How can we bless, you know, our loved ones with the gifts? And, like, let's just start right with reading and writing, you know? Not everybody can do it even. So, there's my rant for the day.